does not change the above-mentioned doctrine. The paragraphs which I mentioned discuss the problem of the criminal responsibility of two soldiers who had been present at a place where the crime had been committed by other soldiers. The military court of appeals acquitted them of having committed an offense by virtue of this presence, having believed that their presence at this place was by virtue of compliance with a legal order, and it was not proved that they had any share whatsoever in the offense. Under such circumstances, the presence of these people alone at a place where a crime was committed by others does not suffice to find a criminal conspiracy or complicity in a crime. In other words, as long as soldiers act upon a legal order, one cannot maintain that they were partners in a criminal conspiracy. However, from the judgment itself, it transpires very clearly that if those same soldiers had been present on that spot by virtue and upon complying with an illegal order, an order which was prima facie illegal, then they too would have been considered accomplices to the crime. Therefore, the Kafir Qasim judgment, not only that it does not aid the accused, but rather its conclusions support the general principles which I have enumerated.
End of thought, we shall have a 20 minutes break.
And this was the ruling in the trials of the war criminals as well. Even the courts in Germany itself do not recognize duress as legal defense any longer. The court will find on page 38 of our booklet the following statement, a quotation from the war criminals' trials.
Duress can seldom provide a defense. It will never do so unless the threat which is offered as a result of which the unlawful act is perpetrated is a threat of immediate harm of a degree far, far greater than that which would be created if the order were obeyed. Ulemata.
And further on,
there is further a defense which to some extent is akin to that of superior orders, and that is the defense which I may describe as the defense of duress and coercion. It has been said here that once the order for the execution of these soldiers had been given, it was impossible for any of the accused to ignore it, and that the only way in which they could act was the way in which, in fact, they did act. Now, that defense of duress and coercion is not a defense in law. You are not entitled, even if you wished to save your own life, to take the life of another.
The German court in the city of Ulm, whose long and detailed opinion I have read out here and I've quoted from in my preliminary pleading, follows the rulings of the German superior courts and quotes, and I have the following quotation. A person who served as the accused did for years in the Gestapo and in the SD during the National Socialist regime cannot evade criminal responsibility only on the basis of the argument that he had been subject to bodily danger and danger to his life had he refused to participate any longer in the criminal acts. End of quotation. And may I be permitted to submit another judgment without quoting from him? It is a from the German Supreme Court about the question of belonging to the RSHA and any acts committed by virtue of that belonging.
President Court, do you have more than one copy, Mr. Hausner? This was read into the protocol, the matter of Krause. Which court is it?
Mr. Hausner, this is the BGH, this German Supreme Court.
Dr. Savatius, did you see it?
Mr. Hausner, no, we did not show these references to the defense, but if the court permits, we will do that now.
President of Court, I will initial it and hand it over to Dr. Savatius.
The relevant passages to which I make reference, I can hand over to Dr. Savatius right now.
President of Court.
I will hand
it to Dr. Savatius and he will return the judgment when he sums up for the defense.
In view of the legal principles of conspiracy, three questions are therefore asked. First, what was the criminal conspiracy? Second, what was done in order to implement it? And third, what was Adolf Eichmann's place in this abysmal plot of horrors? The desire to cast the Jews out of Europe was transformed in 1940 into the Madagascar plan. I would not single out this plan here for discussion here, were it not for the fact that the accused wanted to draw credit from this plan and to point to it as well as an experiment by himself to seek an alleged positive solution for the Jewish problem and to give the Jews, in his words, firm soil under their feet. In Vienna still, as we saw from his letter and as we have shown in a document, he had considered the matter in his office. At that time already, he had in fact planned extermination by deportation to Madagascar. One can believe that it was the Stürmer and no other source which served as a source of inspiration for this plan. Incidentally, I have studied Adolf Böhm's book, and I have not found a trace of any Madagascar plan. And one must remember that we have to judge Eichmann when he planned the concentration of Jews in Madagascar, not in view of subsequent developments, not in view of the physical extermination which had not yet come up then, but in the light of pre-war reality and of reality before the order for physical extermination had gone out. The plan assumed its final form when the war had already broken out. Eichmann admitted that it had been processed and transferred by his department after consultation and negotiations with other officers. According to that plan, the local inhabitants of Madagascar had to be uprooted, all 4 million of them, to deport them from the island and to settle instead the Jews on that island, an island whose chief advantage was, and it was explicitly stated, that it would prevent its inhabitants from having any contact, including commercial contact, with other nations. There the Jews were to be under Gestapo supervision and would never attain independence. They planned to throw 1 million Jews onto the island every year. When one studies this plan of horrors, which came from Eichmann, we'll find out that the main design was to gain control over the Jews, to seize them and dump them on this island, banish them to a land of doom where they will be completely cut off from the rest of the world. And whether the Jews would manage to survive on the island or not, this was not at all important from Eichmann's point of view. He was questioned about the plan, and the court will find his reaction in the transcript. Its cruelty, its lack of any consideration for the value of human lives, the fact that it was full of hostility for the Jews, and that it was drawn up without any regard for the rights of the people of Madagascar. This plan was not much better from a plan of total extermination. A person who was capable of drawing up such a plan, recommending it and struggling for it, certainly did not find it difficult to go over to the next stage of the criminal conspiracy. But it is impudent, it is brazen cheek to recall this plot in the same breath with Theodor Herzl and the Zionist movement.
It is possible But Eichmann was furious that his plans were not accepted. He expected that his name will once again be connected, as happened at the ministers' meeting of the 12th of November 1938, and the practical solution of getting rid of the Jews, when as a veteran National Socialist he had to strive for this aim. Maybe he played about with this idea that he and not Heydrich will become the Commissar for Jewish Affairs, where his plan followed. In any case, instead of Madagascar, the extermination plan was adopted. Eichmann admits that he knew about this plan when it was in its first stages in the summer of '41. And that he had an active part in the implementation of this plan. He tried, as said, to convince the court that only by lack of choice he had to do this job. And although, as I said, as far as his conviction is concerned, there is no difference if the killing is done because of the lust of blood or out of pessimism, as Eichmann defined his attitude and his state of mind in connection with the final solution. But from the point of view of evaluating the man itself, the kind of person he tried to draw to the court, the herd of helpers and aiders who helped him in this bloody job, and to appreciate Nazi Germany, this is of importance. He did voice the truth, and this also is evident from a certain quotation of the Zassen document, about which he was questioned twice. And these are the words. Eichmann to Zassen. Quotation. And this is how it happened with the Jews. When I was given the order, not being prepared, exactly as a baby, to act against a guest by the host nation, I had my thoughts within my heart. And when I realized that this was necessary, I implemented this with the same fanaticism as a man would expect of himself as a veteran National Socialist who was expected to obey and do so by his superiors. And no doubt they saw in me the suitable man for the job. This I say today in the year 1957 to my own detriment. I could have simplified matters. I could have said, this was an order which I had to obey because of the oath of loyalty which I took, and that I had eye blinds like a horse. No, all this is nonsense and cheap excuses. I cannot be responsible for such an excuse to my inner morals. Therefore, I must declare openly and clearly that I have endeavored, after implementing the first orders blindly without thinking, I later endeavored to enter into the matter. I was ordered by fate and given a horizon which made me fit for the job. When I asked him, this is the end of the quotation, when I asked him for the first time if this is what he said, he denied and said that this was impossible. This must be forgery and distortion. But even his own counsel when reading out to him a part of the Sassen document. When he was cross-examined, the accused admitted that he did say so as recorded and that they are correct. Later, after questions put by the court, I questioned him once again, and I read the continuation of the same quotation. In page 1617 of session 107, we read his reaction. First, he read the following quotation taken from his own mouth. But I am of the kind of people who think I can do a job blindly, then I do it without any joy. But when I realize the necessity and the meaning of the work, then I do it gladly and with vision. He answered and admitted when cross-examined that he did say so, and this was the truth. But he connected this with his work in Vienna. Then I asked him to go on reading the very same things he denied completely when he was cross-examined. This was a continuation of a quotation read to him by his own counsel. Then he answered my questions and said that he did say so, that they were correct, but this refers to his first period of activity. But when he was asked again, who was this guest nation against whom he was supposed to act, he answered that these were the Jews, admitted that the host which must free him of its Jews, that is Europe. Throwing the Jews out of Europe, this Adolf Eichmann did according to his own words with joy and vision. Do we need further proof in regard to his own attitude? Of his own will, his complete identification with this plan? It will do if the whole quotation is studied in the Sassen document as read to the accused for the first time, and it becomes clear and evident that all these words were referring to the future when he dealt with a general extermination. If the court will kindly read the quotation, it is in the court record. Eichmann appears as the man for the job, not blindly, not without a will of his own, but out of devotion to this plan. And then one more quotation from the Sassen document, and I quote, I was not an ordinary man receiving orders. Had I been such a man, I would have been a fool. I thought when I acted. I was an idealist. This is the end of the quotation. The devil himself claims to have ideals. Rudolf Hess writes in his autobiography that he tried more than once to study this man Eichmann and to find a way of knowing his inner personality. Eichmann revealed fanaticism extremely to exterminate Jews and convinced Hess, the commander of Auschwitz, that any compromise will rebound in future. Hess, the direct murderer of millions, testifies that his conversations with
44 in Budapest. To the eternal grief of the Jewish nation, whose wound will bleed for generations, for eternal shame to the murderers, and to the shame of the generation which stood inactive and did not move when an entire nation was murdered. These were effective means. At least 6 million Jews were annihilated. This was the testimony of Professor Salo Baron, who analyzed all the historical sources. He also analyzed a historical and sociological analysis, the nature of these Jewish communities which are no longer alive. They were the heart of the nation.
The attempt to exterminate them and to bring the Jews to the threshold of destruction, was not only what they planned. They planned the destruction of the entire nation. And for the number of victims, there are other proofs as well. The evidence of Grell in this trial corroborates what has been stated. Eichmann was boasting to Grell in Hungary about the 6 million Jews on his conscience. This million of 6 million had been reported to Hettel by Eichmann, and he himself quotes his own statement in the police interrogation and says that on the threshold of collapse, he said to his officers, he said that he spoke about 5 million Jews, and afterwards he added, I quote, T37. I'm not a statistician. I calculated these things roughly, and I said to myself that 6 million Jews roughly had been killed. If we add the victims of Einsatzgruppen and the concentration camps on the basis of Hess evidence, we can reach considerably larger figures. In reply to the court's questions, Eichmann said that in 1944, in connection with the business goods against blood, he said that he believed that about 800,000 to 1 million Jews had survived in Europe. This is what he said himself. In the analysis of the figures, we could see that the result surpassed the 6 million. The Jewish underground in Poland in 1944, that means say before the extermination of Jews in Hungary and before the finishing touches to the extermination, we could see in this period already 5 million.
President of Court, incidentally, I think we still do not have a translation of this pamphlet of the Jewish underground in Poland, De Profundis. Could you check that, sir?
This is the blood harvest, which has no parallel in history in its cruelty, and this is not known in the annals of history. And now we have only to determine the exact place of Adolf Eichmann in this march of horrors. What was his position then? Was he just a very perfect dictaphone though a very ready dictaphone, but simply a man who was carrying orders, a man who was just getting extracts from files, and who would just have to take down notes which were dictated to him, as he said, or was he the very pillar in the center of the office, which was the office of death? What Eichmann says in this respect is most contradictory. His statement is a jumble of contradictions which run counter to all the mass of evidence and show quite clearly that if what he said was true, it would be absolutely impossible for any military apparatus to set up this work through his instrumentality. It was intended, of course, to, as it were, present this office as extremely unimportant and show it as an office of microscopical significance. And Eichmann, of course, was trying to shift responsibility on all sorts of other offices and other institutions. But all the documents which have been amassed show it quite clearly that no office could have been run the way Adolf Eichmann is trying to persuade us it did function. And we must say one thing about the Nazis. They were not inefficient. In order to shift the onus of responsibility and shower it on somebody else, he humiliates himself. He says himself that he was never worthy of the position he had, and he said that he never availed himself of the authority he should have as department head. And in order to prove his absurd way up to the hilt, he said that he never got any recommendation, that he never gave any recommendation to any of his superiors, that he was just blindly carrying out their orders, whether it applied to the deportation of Jews towards death, or whether it were the cases of certain applications of some individual Jews to be permitted to send food parcels to general government, or, for example, to occupied France. In all these cases, his superiors decided. He had nothing whatever to do with it. He had no finger in this pie. He simply carried out what was expected of him, what the superiors demanded. This is what he's trying to explain to you, Your Honors, that he is a poor man, that he is a victim of circumstances whose fate simply involved him in the wheels of the machine of death. He doesn't deny that this machine of death existed. He doesn't deny that this machine of death was acting. He doesn't deny that this juggernaut had carried out those things. But he reiterates his statements. Do it. I had no finger in this, but others do it. Others were dealing with these hideous things. They were those who gave orders, and they did it, of course, with enthusiasm. This is what he admits. But in the Nazi system, built on leadership principle, there was only one man who gave orders. This was Adolf Hitler. All the others who were behind him in the administrative hierarchy were receiving orders and would give those orders to lower echelons. Anybody who had a rank and position in the Nazi hierarchy was giving and receiving orders. Vyslitseny confessed that the idea of extermination in the East was created in the minds of Eichmann and Globocnik, as Eichmann said it quite clearly to his friend in 1941. Then this idea was brought to Himmler, and then it came back in the form of Führer's orders. I have no doubt whatsoever that Eichmann was not the first to give the lethal order and the blanket order for the extermination of Jews. As I have no doubt whatsoever that the chief of staff did not himself involve Germany in the Second World War. But anyway, those orders came from Adolf Hitler, and they would pass all the intermediate stages until the very last of those who were carrying out these orders. Eichmann, according to his own statement, had a place in this chain. He was a very important link in this chain of bringing Jews to the camps, knowing full well that there they were going to be exterminated. Here, Eichmann confessed his share in those hideous and unsurpassed crimes. And according to what he said, this is certainly quite enough for the court. But was it all he did? Was it all his share? This microscopical presentation of his office and his authorities can certainly not be convinced. He said himself on one occasion that the accused has a right to lie if this is going to save him. Against what he said, there is a mass of documents that has been accumulated. All sorts of documents amassed during the war. Also documents constituting evidence given by war criminals after the war. And also the police interrogation of the accused. All this testify to him as a central figure in the implementation of the murderous plans. And his defense is only buttressed by his own words. Therefore, perhaps he was so careful in his evidence. Therefore, he was so reticent. And therefore, he was all the time trying to show bad memory. Even if what he said was absurd and in flagrant contradiction to what he said before, he was trying to make a supreme effort to misrepresent facts and always to answer, however absurd it was, in order to wriggle out of responsibility. All the proofs, all the evidence amassed didn't prevent him from speaking all the time on any question that arose. Therefore, he was shocked when he saw the Sassen document where Eichmann spoke about Eichmann, and which was a flagrant contradiction to what he said here in the court. Therefore, he said that they are trying to roast me in this document. And therefore, he said, when he already got his goat, as it were, that he's not going to answer any more questions. He said that the extracts from the Sassen documents that had been committed to the court were not correct. But after all, even those extracts were not necessary in order to bring about the condemnation of Eichmann. We have other documents. Without Eichmann accusing and incriminating himself, we have got enough incriminating documents. And the prosecution does not seek to find the sources of accusation from the accused's own statements, because we do not need it. But the passages accepted by the court were necessary in order to bring out even more distinctly the absurdity of his claim, in order to refute anything he said, which is anyway without any connection with truth. The passages which were corrected by him show beyond any shadow of doubt that before this court there is not only a murder of millions, but an inveterate liar who, when pressed to the wall by documents, might